What happens when a slightly scatterbrained courier keeps bumping into a meticulous cafe owner? Sometimes the best connections start in the most unexpected ways. Ethan had been driving deliveries for SpeedyGo for exactly 3 months, and he was finally getting the hang of it. In fact, the fact that he'd only delivered to the wrong address twice this week was practically a personal record. His biggest problem wasn't incompetence. It was his tendency to overthink directions and second-guess his GPS, which usually led him on scenic but unnecessary detours through the city. "You've got to be kidding me," Julia muttered as she watched the all-too-familiar delivery van pull up outside her café, Ground in Glory, a cozy but busy coffee shop in the heart of Westbrook. She'd been waiting for her weekly shipment of coffee beans all morning, and now it was already past 3 in the afternoon. Ethan hopped out of the van, checked his phone one more time, then grabbed a box from the back. His hair was slightly rumpled from running his hands through it, a habit he'd picked up whenever he was trying to figure out street numbers. "Afternoon, Julia," he called with a sheepish smile. "Sorry I'm late. Got caught up in that construction mess on Lincoln Avenue." Julia crossed her arms, though she did notice he'd remembered her name this time. "Please tell me that's my Guatemalan beans and not another box of, I don't know, office chairs for someone else." "Hey, that only happened once," Ethan protested, setting the box down carefully. "And I fixed it the same day, after I called the company 3 times. Details," he grinned, annoyingly charming. "Yes, it's your beans. Guatemalan medium roast. Plus," he checked the invoice, "a bottle of fancy Tahiti and vanilla syrup that costs more than I make in a day." Julia couldn't help but smile. "It's Tahiti and vanilla. My customers have expensive taste. Must be nice," Ethan said, then caught himself. I mean, good for business, right? Having customers who appreciate quality. There was something different about him today, less rushed, more present. Julia found herself actually looking at him instead of just tolerating his drop-offs. He had nice eyes, she noticed, blue with faint golden flecks. "Ethan, can I ask you something?" "Sure. How do you still have this job?" She asked it lightly, more curious than critical. "Because I'm terrible with directions," he laughed, running a hand through his hair again. "Honestly, I like the work. I get to meet people, see the city, and my uncle owns the company, so he's patient with my, learning curve." "Ah, nepotism. The best kind." Ethan leaned against his van, suddenly more at ease. "Plus, I'm studying business management at night. This is just temporary while I figure out my next move." Julia felt a flicker of respect. "What kind of business? Maybe hospitality? I like the idea of creating spaces where people feel welcome, like what you've done here." He gestured toward the cafe. Julia followed his gaze. She'd put her heart into making Ground and Glory inviting. Warm lighting, mismatched vintage chairs, local paintings on the walls. Not flashy, but homey. "You really think so? Are you kidding? This place has the best vibe in the neighborhood. I take the long way sometimes just to walk past and see people actually relaxing here instead of rushing in and out." Warmth spread in Julia's chest, and it had nothing to do with the espresso machine. "That's actually really nice of you to say. Just being honest." Ethan checked his watch. "I should head out. 2 more stops before 5. "Ethan, wait." The words came out before Julia thought them through. "Would you like a coffee? On the house. As a thank you for finally getting my order right and on time." His face lit up. "Really? I mean, yes. Definitely. Yes. What do you recommend? Do you trust me with coffee?" "Absolutely." Julia disappeared behind the counter while Ethan took the chance to look around the shop, really taking it in this time. She was right. It wasn't fancy, but it was perfect. The kind of place where you could actually have a conversation or read a book without feeling rushed. "One Julia special," she announced, sliding a ceramic mug across the counter. Ethan took a sip, and his eyebrows shot up. "Okay, wow. What is this trade secret?" Julia grinned, clearly pleased by his reaction. "I won't tell you everything, but it does involve that expensive Tahiti and vanilla syrup. It's incredible. This might be the best coffee I've ever had." "You don't have to flatter me. You already got your delivery credit." "I'm not flattering. I'm genuinely amazed." Ethan took another slow sip, savoring it. "How long have you been doing this?" 3 years. Saved up forever to open this place." Julia found herself settling into the conversation, enjoying how Ethan actually listened when she spoke. What about you? Always dreamed of being in delivery? Ethan laughed. Not exactly. I studied engineering in college, but I burned out senior year. Took time off to figure things out, and I'm still figuring. Engineering to coffee delivery, that's quite a journey. Life's weird like that. He finished his coffee and set the mug down reluctantly. This was really great, Julia. Thank you. Thank you for not bringing me a box of dog treats this time. That was one time. As Ethan headed for the door, he paused. Hey, Julia. Yeah. Same time next week? There was something in his voice, hopeful, maybe a little nervous, that made Julia's heart skip. Same time next week. After he left, Julia found herself watching through the front window as his van pulled away. For the first time in months, she was actually looking forward to her next delivery, and that was either a very good sign or a very dangerous one. The following Wednesday, Julia kept checking the clock more than usual. Ethan's delivery wasn't due until after lunch, but she'd been glancing at the street since morning, telling herself it was just because she needed those beans. When his van finally pulled up at 2:30, he looked more stressed than usual. His hair was definitely messy, and he moved with more urgency than his normal easygoing pace. Please tell me you have good news, Julia called as he approached with her box. Define good news, Ethan replied, though he was smiling. Your coffee beans are here, on time and completely correct. And the bad news? I may have volunteered us for something without asking you first. Julia raised an eyebrow. Us. Ethan set the box down and rubbed the back of his neck, another nervous habit she was starting to recognize. Okay, so, you know the community center over on Brook Street? They're having a fundraiser this weekend. Local businesses are donating items for a silent auction. Okay, and Mrs. Larkin, she runs the place, mentioned they were hoping for some local coffee donations. Maybe some of those special drinks you make. And I might have told her you make the best coffee in the city and would probably love to help. Julia stared at him. You volunteer my coffee for a charity auction. I volunteered your amazing coffee for a charity auction to fund after-school programs for kids who can't afford them otherwise. Now Ethan looked genuinely worried. I'm sorry, I should have asked first. I just got excited talking about your shop, and Mrs. Larkin seemed so hopeful. I can call her back and explain I overstepped. Or I could donate something instead, though I'm not sure what I have that anyone would even want. Ethan. He stopped mid-ramble. It's fine, she said, laughing. It's actually really sweet that you thought of me. Relief softened his face. Really? Really? I was already planning to donate something anyway. The community center does good work. You were. I live in this neighborhood too. I care about what happens here. Julia studied his expression, noting the genuine concern in his eyes. The fact that you thought of them says something nice about you. Ethan's smile was softer now, less guarded. My little sister goes to their after-school program, sometimes when my mom's working late shifts. Mrs. Larkin, she's good people. You have a sister, Sophie, Ethan said. She's 15 and about 100 times smarter than me. She's the one who suggested I might actually be good at business, even if I'm terrible with street addresses. Julia found herself wanting to know more about his sister, his family, what he was like outside of these short deliveries. Want another coffee? I'm testing a new blend. I don't want to keep you from customers. It's Wednesday afternoon. The rush won't start until 4. Julia was already moving toward the espresso machine. Besides, I could use an honest opinion from someone who thought instant coffee was acceptable until 3 weeks ago. From someone who actually pays attention. This time, Julia made 2 cups and came around the counter to sit at a small table near the front window. Ethan looked pleasantly surprised as he joined her. So, she said, after they'd both taken a sip, tell me about Sophie. Is she as charming as her brother? More so, and she can actually read a map. Ethan grinned. She wants to be a doctor, already volunteers at the animal shelter on weekends, and somehow keeps a perfect GPA. Sounds like she takes after someone. Not me. I'm the family disaster. You know, for a disaster, you're pretty thoughtful. Volunteering my services for charity, bringing me coffee stories. Julia paused. You do realize you could have just called about the donation instead of telling me in person. Ethan's cheeks flushed slightly. Could have. But you didn't. Nope, I didn't. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the afternoon foot traffic drift past the window. Julia noticed how much more at ease Ethan seemed when he wasn't rushing back to his van. How his smile looked different when it wasn't an apology. Can I ask you something? Ethan said eventually. Sure. Why coffee? What made you open a cafe, specifically? Julia considered, swirling the coffee in her cup. My grandmother used to say coffee brings people together in a way nothing else does. Strangers become friends over a shared table. Business deals happen over lattes. People fall in love over cappuccinos. She glanced up to find Ethan watching her intently. I wanted to create a space where those moments could happen. Have they? Those moments. Some, Julia said with a small smile. I've seen first dates turn into proposals. Business partnerships that started at that corner table. People who met here as strangers and became regulars who saved seats for each other. It's not always dramatic, but it's real. That's beautiful, Ethan said quietly. You're basically in the business of making connections. I suppose I am. Ethan glanced at his watch and sighed. I should get going. 2 more deliveries, and one of them's that office building where I always get lost in the elevator system. The one on Carson Avenue? That's the one. Julia pulled out her phone and held up the screen. There's an app for that building. Shows you exactly which elevator goes to which floors. Sophie probably already knows about it. Ethan stared at the app like she'd just revealed the secret of eternal happiness. You're a lifesaver. I thought I was going to spend my entire career wandering those hallways. Happy to help. As he stood to leave, Ethan hesitated by the door. Julia? Yeah. This weekend, after the fundraiser, would you maybe want to grab dinner? I know a place that's not fancy, but the food's amazing. And I promise I know exactly where it is. Julia felt that flutter in her chest again, stronger this time. Are you asking me on a date, Ethan Parker? I'm asking you to have dinner with me. If that's a date, then yes, it's a date. His directness caught her off guard. No stammering, no second-guessing. Just a simple, honest question. Yes, she said. I'd like that. The smile that spread across Ethan's face was worth every mixed-up delivery, every late arrival, every moment of exasperation he'd caused her in the past few months. Great. It's a date. After he left, Julia realized she was smiling at nothing in particular. Maybe her grandmother had been right about coffee bringing people together, even if it sometimes took a few wrong deliveries to make it happen. Saturday evening arrived with that perfect October weather that made all of Westbrook glow. The community center fundraiser had been a success. Julia's coffee donation brought in $200 for the after-school program, and she'd met half the neighborhood in the process. Now, walking beside Ethan toward the restaurant he'd promised wasn't fancy, but had amazing food. Julia realized she was nervous in a way she hadn't been in years. Good nervous, the kind that came with possibility. You were amazing today, Ethan said as they strolled down the tree-lined street. Mrs. Larkin couldn't stop talking about how professional your presentation was. It was just coffee and a little explanation about roasting techniques. It was more than that. You made people care about something they'd never thought about before. That's a gift. Julia glanced at him, noticing how different he looked out of his delivery uniform. The casual button-down brought out the blue in his eyes, and his hair looked intentionally tousled instead of accidentally messy. You clean up pretty well yourself, she said. Sophie helped me shop. Apparently, I have terrible taste in everything except coffee shops. They stopped outside a small Italian place, tucked between a used bookstore and a vintage clothing boutique. The kind of neighborhood spot that never needed to advertise because locals kept it full. Johnny's, Julia read from the simple wooden sign. I've walked past here 100 times, but never been in. Best marinara sauce in the city, Ethan said, holding the door for her. And the owner remembers your name after the second visit. The interior was warm and unpretentious. Checkered tablecloths, wine bottles turned into candle holders, the low hum of friendly conversation. Johnny himself, a man in his 60s with flour on his apron, greeted Ethan with a smile and a clap on the shoulder. Ethan, And this must be the beautiful coffee lady you told me about. Julia felt her cheeks warm as Ethan introduced her. Johnny, meet Julia. Julia, this is Johnny, the man who makes the world's best tiramisu. Only the world's best. Johnny clutched his chest in mock offense. You wound me, ragazzo. It's the universe's best tiramisu. Dinner was incredible. In 2 hours, Julia learned more about Ethan than she had in 3 months of 5-minute drop-offs. He was the oldest of 3 kids, had taught himself guitar during his engineering burnout, and still called his grandmother every Sunday morning. What made you switch from engineering? Julia asked over their shared slice of tiramisu, which was, in fact, universally excellent. Honestly, I realized I was doing it because I thought I should, not because I wanted to. All those formulas and calculations, they felt like puzzles I was solving for someone else's life. Now I'm trying to figure out what puzzles I actually want to solve. He smiled. The business classes are helping. I'm learning about customer service, operations, building something from the ground up. It feels more real, like what you did with this place. Exactly like what you did with the cafe, Ethan said. You saw something the neighborhood needed, and you made it happen. That's not just business sense, that's vision. Julia felt something shift in her chest. Not the flutter from before, but something deeper, the recognition of being truly seen by someone who understood her work. Ethan, yeah, I have to tell you something. He looked suddenly cautious. Okay, that first day, when you brought me dog treats instead of coffee beans, I was so frustrated I almost called your company to complain. But you didn't. No, I didn't. Because when you came back that afternoon with the right order and a handwritten apology note, I realized you actually cared about fixing your mistake. Most people would have just shrugged it off. It mattered to you, so it mattered to me. That's exactly what I mean, Julia said, reaching across the table to touch his hand. You've been doing that since the beginning, paying attention to what matters to people, even when you're still figuring out the details. Ethan turned his hand palm up, gently intertwining their fingers. Julia, I need to tell you something, too. What? I haven't been making as many mistakes lately. Julia raised an eyebrow. I've noticed your deliveries have been pretty much perfect for the past month. That's not what I mean. Ethan took a breath. I mean, I've been taking the long route to your cafe on purpose, making sure I have time to stop and talk, even when I don't have a delivery for you. Julia stared at him. You've been making detours to see me every chance you get. I told myself it was because I enjoy our conversations, which is true. But really, it's because I've been falling for you since that first coffee you made me, and I didn't know how to say it without sounding like an idiot. Ethan Parker, Julia said softly, you're many things, but an idiot isn't one of them. So when I say I'd like to take you on another date, and maybe another one after that, and see where this goes, I'd say yes to all of that. They walked back toward Julia's apartment slowly, neither wanting the evening to end. The city settled into its nighttime rhythm around them, but Julia felt wide awake, energized by possibility. Can I ask you one more thing? Ethan said as they stopped in front of her building. Anything. That coffee you made me the first day, the Julia special, what was actually in it? Julia grinned. Guatemalan beans, a splash of Tahiti and vanilla, and just a tiny bit of cinnamon. Nothing revolutionary. Then why did it taste so amazing? Because, Julia said, stepping closer, I made it for you specifically. I paid attention to how you take your coffee, what you might like. I wanted to surprise you. Mission accomplished. Ethan leaned down and kissed her, soft and sure, tasting like tiramisu and possibility. When they broke apart, Julia was smiling. Same time Monday? She asked, echoing their usual parting. Actually, Ethan said, pulling out his phone, I have something better than same time Monday. He showed her the screen, a photo of a delivery schedule with her address highlighted every day of the week. I may have volunteered to handle all the deliveries for your block, he said, grinning sheepishly. Purely for efficiency purposes. You understand? Of course. Purely efficiency. Though I should warn you, I'm still pretty terrible with street numbers. Good thing I'm not going anywhere. As Ethan drove away, Julia stood on her front steps, watching his taillights disappear around the corner. In a few hours, she'd open her cafe, start the espresso machine, and welcome the first customers of the day. But for the first time in 3 years, she was looking forward to something beyond her work. Here's something to consider. In our rush to optimize everything, we often miss the beauty in small imperfections. Maybe the best connections happen not despite our flaws, but because of how we handle them. After all, isn't love just two people deciding that each other's particular brand of chaos is worth navigating together? Sometimes, the best deliveries are the ones that arrive exactly when you need them, even if you hadn't placed the order.